Hello, welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. If you do like the programming you see here and the artists and musicians I visit with, please be sure and hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Paul Page is an Irish guitarist who might be best known for his time with the band Whipping Boy. The band formed in Dublin in 1988, and the long-tenured lineup included Fearghal McKee vocals, Paul on guitar, Myles McDonnell bass vocals, and Colm Hassett on drums. After releasing 3 albums along with several singles, the band called it a day in 2006. After Whipping Boy, Paul did a bit of writing on the history of Whipping Boy. Mr. Page is currently part of the duo The Sentimental Tourist with Dave Long of Into Paradise. See my recent interview from September with Dave and Shane O'Neill of Blue in Heaven. The Sentimental Tourists released their first self-titled EP in August and have a brand new EP, Living in Smoke Dreams, released just last month. Well, welcome, Paul.
Thanks for having me on, Greg.
You're very welcome. Well, take us back a few years. It's been. Where were you born?
I was born in Dublin, so I was born, raised, and I've lived in Dublin all my life. So yeah,
You're,
I don't see it changing now. I'm kind of a lifer at this stage.
I'm a life or two around Dallas, in and
Okay.
around Dallas my whole life. So yeah, hometown boy, like
Yeah, yeah.
like they say. Well, do you recall early on your childhood growing up there?
Yeah, I suppose I grew up in would be classed as a fairly rough neighborhood in inner city Dublin. So it was, it was a tough area to grow up. Bit of a heroin problem in the early 80s in Dublin. Um, and I would have seen that going on. Like people that I grew up with subsequently passed away from heroin, from being involved in drugs. So my earliest childhood, I just remember being sports mad, like loved soccer, football, Gaelic football, any sport, and would spend the whole day, from dawn to dusk, nearly out kicking a ball around. Music, I started to get interested in my early teens. Like I think the first bands that really started to, pique my interest would have been like Adam and the Ants,
Yeah.
the Police. Loved the Police as well, and I just have this vivid memory of had this little transistor radio, and when I go to bed at night, scouring the airwaves, trying to hear, the Police on the radio, because before streaming, where you can get everything on demand, that was pretty much the only way you'd get to hear music. So yeah, and music then throughout my teenage years started to take more of a grip. Um, Started going to local gigs, and I think the kind of gig, and I've said this lots of times, the gig that really changed everything for me was seeing Echo and the Bunnymen when I was, I think I was 16 or 17 in Dublin. It was around the time they released Ocean Rain, and I was just absolutely just blown away that four guys could make something so powerful and so raw sounding. So from there on in, that's all I wanted to do was learn to play the guitar and to get involved in music.
Yeah, yeah. I think I saw them the same tour. I think it was. Come to think of it, yeah. You mentioned
Yeah.
some others. Police. I saw the Police with XTC. I remember that was like
Wow.
early '80s. I want to say, maybe late '70s. Were either one of your parents musical or musically inclined at all?
Um, my dad could play badly the accordion. He played I just remember him playing the accordion. I have it now. My dad died when I was 17, but my memories of him, yeah, I would remember him playing the accordion. My uncles were very musical. They were all they're quite talented musicians. They would have been into kind of traditional music bands, like the Dubliners, ballad songs. So I've fairly good, vivid recollection of visiting my grandparents and always hearing music. They'd be playing the tin whistle or the acoustic guitar. So there's a bit of music there in the background. My parents, not directly, like my dad, as I said, played the accordion, but he wouldn't have been a talented musician at all now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love all that old folk music, like you said, mentioning that, and from the UK and from Ireland, from
Yeah.
over
Well,
on the.
it's kind of something that we're steeped in over here. Like, you kind of think um you may not be into traditional music, or like I remember as a teenager, bands like the Dubliners and the singers wouldn't have meant much to me. But I sometimes think now some of that had to have seeped into even Heartworm, the kind of storytelling
Yes.
type of thing that's going on with that album. I think Fearghal must have absorbed some of that as well when he was growing up. So it does seep in eventually, even at the time it didn't appear very cool when I was a teenager. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, I can appreciate it now more.
Yeah, yeah, with time you can, I know when I grew up there were certain bands, ABBA is one that comes to mind.
Yeah,
You would never admit that you liked ABBA, your friends would like, what, look down. But then with time it's like, it's a great band,
great pop band. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
wrote,
great
wrote
songs.
great pop melodies and
But I recently talked to Jim Lockhart, who was
oh yeah,
in Horselips.
yeah.
And yeah, and he had some really good stories. He's I mean, really adept with history, and especially with the folk movement and all of that, and really some nice stories to tell. Well,
Jim would have produced their first radio session, I think, on RTE radio.
oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, he was a producer, and I
right,
remember in our ignorance, I wouldn't have known anything about his musical history. So we would have come across as these snotty-nosed, ignorant guys that could barely play their instruments and didn't acknowledge anything about Jim's kind of rich history in,
yes,
in music. And it was the same with Pete Holiday. Pete, if you remember, the Radiators,
yes,
punk
yes,
band, he would have worked with us in our early days, done or actually just pre-Heartworm, he would have done some demos for us. And I just knew Pete was this, he used to play guitar, but I didn't realize how significant the Radiators were because my kind of musical history seemed just started from like Joy Division onwards. I didn't, and,
right,
and that's just the way because when you're growing up, that's the music that hits you, and anything from before that is like the distant past, really. So yeah, it's
yeah,
funny. Dublin music scene, it's all very interlinked, and you come across all like Jim came a producer, but I didn't know anything about his background in
right.
bands. So
Right at that time, yeah, yeah. I like to go back and kind of, recapture a lot of that music, and or hear it for the first time, and
yeah,
yeah, bring it all together to the fore. But yeah, it's a lot of that. I mean, you can see I collect so much of it, but we're pretty esoteric, or a wide range of taste. Well, can you recall one of the first singles or albums that you got yourself?
yeah. Probably it's in the category guilty pleasures. I just can't say for certain which was first one. I know I did buy Crazy Little Thing Called Love by Queen.
Yeah, yeah,
I think a couple of Boney M songs tragically found their way into the music collection. But then it would have been Adam and the Ants. Like I think I found some of my really old singles recently, and there's more Adam and the Ants in there than anything else. So I think they would have been pretty much the first, and it was all 7-inch singles. I think it was a long time before I bought an album because it was just so expensive, when you're a kid. And we used to tape everything off the radio.
yeah,
That was the,
yeah,
you
yes,
know,
yes,
the kind of piracy of the day. You'd buy blank cassettes and fill them with everything on the you hear on the radio that you like. So yeah, but
yeah. I did
they
that.
were the four singles.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of those, like you said, they were more affordable. I used to do that too. There was a show here called Rock and Roll Alternative, which isn't the most creative name for a show,
Yeah,
but it was. I remember it was on Sunday night, and it was our only exposure to alternative music, and it was for a couple hours, and he would play a lot of import stuff, and
yeah.
that's where I heard a lot of that from that post punk, a lot of that music from the '80s on that show. So yeah, I would tape them, like you said, I would tape the shows, you know.
Yeah, and kind of that homemade thing where you'd make, little covers, design little covers for your cassettes.
Yes,
I
yes,
loved all that kind
yeah,
of, and that's something that
yeah,
I think teenagers and kids now miss out in terms of experience music. A lot of it's so easy you can stream music in seconds, but
Yeah,
there was a ritual around finding, discovering, and
that's
listening to music back then that's not the same now, I don't think.
That's right. That's right. I've talked to several, grew up the same time period, going to the record store, in anticipation. Maybe
That's
you had
it.
a few that you were looking for, and then getting to if they had listening stations or not. I went to one here, and they didn't have those, but the guy I got to know the owner real well, and he would play or try out, spin a few of the discs, first, so I'd get to know that, by him and playing them. But yeah, just and then purchasing it, and the anticipation, getting home, unwrapping it,
Yeah,
reading the liner notes, playing it. Yeah, that like you said, we're too spoiled. The younger generation today, I think, is too spoiled for us. So
yeah,
yeah.
very true.
Well, well. How about the first live show or concert that you attended that you went to? Can you remember that?
The first live show I went to was Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Oh,
They were at the height of their 15 minutes. They had a period where like it was all Frankie Goes to Hollywood and the 8 weeks and at number one in the charts for a couple of their singles. And yeah, I went to see them. And all I can remember about the show is the screaming,
yeah,
screaming girls. It was literally, it was just a constant scream. I suppose it was almost like that boy band thing at the time. Very
yeah,
similar, but a different era. It was pre-boy band, but that's what it felt like when I see footage of boy bands now. I think that's very like Frankie
yeah.
Goes to Hollywood when I went to see them. So that was the first gig. Um, and I think U2 Grove
Oh,
Park would have been in and around there as well. Maybe second or third gig and the Bunnymen. So those three gigs were the first gigs I think I went along
yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah. The Frankie. I remember hearing "Relax" on here. It was some variety show. I don't remember what it was with the video and how it stood out to me. But yeah, it's almost like Beatles. I mean, you mentioning the Screaming Girls, they were from Liverpool as well. So,
That's
you
right. Yeah. 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 It was they were like a phenomenon when they came, when they emerged on the scene first. I think that was in the days when physical, uh, you know, singles, vinyl. Trying to think, I don't think CDs had come out when that, so it was all vinyl. But when
yeah,
vinyl used to sell huge quantities, like a 7-inch single, you're talking massive quantities to get to number one. So,
yeah,
yeah, different times.
yeah. Don't. I learned my lesson early on, probably in early '80s. Don't shop for records in the summertime in the heat and then leave them in your car. And go.
Yeah,
I had a couple. I don't even remember what it was because I threw them away. But yeah, get back to the car and it's just like, yeah.
yeah. I think we don't have to worry about that with the climate in Ireland. I don't think we rarely get that kind of heat over here.
Yeah, here in Texas. So I didn't shop too much, or if I did in the summer, I got home real quick
Yeah.
after. Well, what were some other early musical influences for you, bands?
Yeah, obviously, I think Joy Division. Um, when I heard Joy Division, just thought they sounded like nothing else. That album, Unknown Pleasures, even how it sounded so ghostly and industrial sounding, and just it sounded really bleak. But as a teenager, it just made a big impact on me. Um, the Smiths obviously were a big,
Yes.
around that time I was growing up, I thought they were incredible bands, and I would have been an ardent fan, got to see them play in Dublin at the height of their. And again, it was a little bit like that Beatlemania. I've never seen an indie or an alternative audience worship a band as much
Oh,
as the Smiths. They were like, there were people crying and throwing themselves at them. They just seemed to incite this kind of adoration that other bands wouldn't have done. So they were all kind of early influences. I started listening to a bit of the likes of Sonic Youth, Big Black as well, a little bit later. And the way I got into alternative music was there was a guy who lived across the road from me, and he had this incredible stereo system. I had this cheapy little thing with one speaker.
yeah.
But I used to go over to him and he started feeding me these records. So he'd say, have a listen to this. And I'd take away a bunch of records, listen to them, and come back. And if I liked them, I'd tape them. But he really got me into alternative music because before that it was Top of the Pops, Adam and the Ants, The Police. But he started like feeding me Joy Division records, The Smiths, then New Order, early New Order. He would have kind of turned me on to those kind of records. So yeah, they were all formative influences for me. Those post-punk bands, the Chameleons would have been another band that I kind of discovered after
Yeah.
they'd been around. But yeah, I
Uh,
loved them. And I got to see them last year in Dublin for the first time, which was a great
oh,
experience.
did you?
So yeah, yeah.
That's something. Yeah, that's my all-time favorite band right there. Mark and the Chameleons.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
brilliant band.
we went. I think I told this same story with my interview with Dave and Shane, but didn't think they would ever come here, and they hadn't. I think they went to New York and L.A., that kind of thing, but not to Dallas. So in 2000, 25 years ago, me and my brother flew to Manchester, which is the only time I've ever been to the UK. Is that
Okay.
and saw them at a show there, and it was supposed to be like their farewell, kind of, with the original lineup.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then come to find out after that, years later, he would come here by himself and with the Reformed unit. Like I've seen him four more times. So, but at that
yeah,
time, you didn't know. It's like this may be our only chance. So yeah.
yeah. Very really good bands, and obviously Dave probably spoke to you about the sound.
Yes. Yeah,
Another great band.
oh yeah,
I
definitely.
think they were a big influence on Into Paradise, definitely. I remember when seeing Into Paradise play around that time, and you could kind of hear the influence of the Bunnymen and the sound in what they were doing. Yeah, they were all bands that I started to get into, started to go to more gigs. The Jeeves and Mary Chain were massive bands for me as well. Like, loved them. Yeah, so pretty much a lot of the best of indie music in the mid 80s, late 80s.
Right, right. Yeah, that guitar oriented. Yeah,
Very
music.
much so, yeah.
You know, a lot of people would say like maybe today want to say dark wave or whatever. I hate categories and stereotypes, but it was definitely post punk. And
Yeah, yeah.
right up my alley. That sound definitely was. Well, were you in a band prior to Whipping Boy?
No, I suppose I went to see that Bunnymen show with my cousin Miles, who was in Whipping Boy, and we kind of grew up together. You know, he'd stay over with me every weekend, and we'd listen to music, and we went to see the Bunnymen. And I remember we both left that gig and said to each other, "We're going to do that someday. We're going to play on that stage." So then it was all about just trying to get instruments and try to learn. And one thing I loved about the kind of hangover from punk was this idea that anyone can play guitar, you know, and that was an inspiring message to me because there wasn't many from where I came from or from where Miles have come from who had gone on to make music or done anything like that. There was a preordained path mapped out for you in terms of you go to school, you know, third level education, and college was not really a runner for us. Like it just wasn't. That was something that the more privileged set would get to do. So it was go from school to a job. And if you're lucky, you might get a 9 to 5 office job, but more likely you'd be working in a factory. So, for us to have that dream to start making music and try to get a band together, that was the starting point. And then it was about just trying to save up, buy guitars. And then we went to see a band called That Large Pink Devil. Fearghal was in at that time.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he was in this band, That Large Pink Devil, and a mutual friend of ours, we told her, look, we're trying to start a band. She says, well, I know this guy, he's playing with a band at the moment, but I think he's getting restless and he's looking to do something else. So we went along and we saw Fergal, and he was like, even at that time, as a front man, you could see he had something, and he was really the most interesting thing about the band. You couldn't look away. And he met us afterwards, and his offstage persona was very different to the onstage. He was kind of fierce on stage, but he was really gentle spoken, and we got on great. And he told us, look, I'm looking to do something else. And we booked some rehearsal time, and just went in, and he knew it. Colm Colin wasn't in that large pink devil, but Fearghal knew him and invited him along to play, and it just seemed to click. We all just saw, like, found, we liked the same kind of thing, and just worked. I don't know, I can't really say why, but you see that glint in the eye when, one of us gets an idea and everyone locks in with it, and you can see this Fearghal would be watching it and smiling, and you knew, this was something that he liked. So we just took it from there, and we were really poor musicians in the beginning. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna try, like, we could barely play. That didn't really matter because we had the confidence to think,
Yes, yes,
we wanted to make a noise, and however that noise, how it was shaped at the time, it didn't matter. We had a band there now and something to kind of strive for. So
yeah. What you said a little bit ago about that DIY ethic, the punk ethic, it really helped. A lot of bands, kind of pulled from that, and at
yeah,
that time period, and earlier. But yeah, that's anybody can do it basically, and
that's it. And some of the best music made is quite simple and quite rudimentary. When you hear a song like Teenage Kicks,
yeah.
it's a fairly basic, just a couple of chords, but it's such a brilliant song. Like, it's this kind of song that you'd still listen to now and hear it and just think, geez, that's incredible. And
Right, right.
it's just simple. It's simple music, sometimes overcomplicating things doesn't necessarily make it sound better. You know, the bit boiling it down to its raw elements and just coming out with something that's very raw and unfiltered sometimes sounds better.
Yes, yes. Another Feargal, yes, with
Yeah,
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 the
yeah,
undertones. Yeah, yeah. That's yeah. Their songs. I mean, but they were steeped in melody too.
yeah,
That's
yeah. That's it. Yeah, the pop kind of that. I've always loved that kind of juxtaposition of, real extreme noise and a pop melody underneath. That's what really appealed to me about the Jeeves and Mary Chain. Like, when I
oh,
heard the Psycho Candy album, I think they did that so well.
oh, they did, and they
Yeah,
have all their whole career. Yes,
yeah, yeah,
that's what got me as well. Wow. Yeah, and then early on, that turning their back on the audience and
yeah,
playing back
yeah.
to the audience.
Yeah, they had a
Uh,
sign outside the venues in the early days that just said that Jesus and Mary Chain play for 20 minutes.
yeah,
So, like,
right.
you knew what you were getting into going in. And I think there was some riots after some of their shows because they left they left the stage. Traditionally, a gig would be an hour at the minimum, but they were
Right.
doing 20-minute sets.
Right, right. Their songs were short, a
Yeah,
la the Ramones, the same kind of thing,
yeah, yeah,
just wow, that's interesting. Yeah, like always like to hear the formation and how bands get together. So,
yeah.
well, originally there was a female guitarist, right?
That's right.
Lolita.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, Tracy would have been with the band. She introduced us to Fearghal, and she couldn't play either. So, she wanted to be in the band. She was a friend of ours, and we said, why not? We'll try it. And it didn't really. I don't think she was that really interested or committed to it. So I think she did one gig with us. Our very first gig was in this goth nightclub in Dublin called The Source. And Fearghal had managed to get us the gig by promising the promoter that would easily bring 200 people. And there was no such thing. We hadn't played before. Nobody knew us at all. But he convinced them. Fergus was good at the old charm when he needed to. So Tracy would have played that gig with us, but I think very soon afterwards she just decided it wasn't really for her. It wasn't something she wanted to do. So we dropped the Lolita bit and stuck with the Whipping Boy. So
Yeah, yeah. What did she do afterwards? Did she pursue music or do anything? Do you know?
I think she's actually back in doing some music now. I don't think she was in a band after that, but I think she's in a kind of a vocal group at the moment. They do some shows. Just it's like a vocal quartet, and there's no, yeah. So yeah, I think she's back doing some music now. But yeah, she didn't do anything straight after us. I think she left the whole music
We'll see.
industry completely.
Right, right. Well, early on, the band released a couple of EPs, and then the debut album Submarine in 1992. Uh,
That's right. Yeah.
what do you remember about the album, like recording sessions and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so we had done the EPs with a small English indie label called Cherie Records. They were a little bit like Creation, and they were kind of an up and coming label, and the kind of label that anything they released, the music press were interested in. They'd had a band called the Telescopes who were kind of
Yeah.
indie
Yes.
darlings at the time. So that was a real surprise for us to get that. But it was very much they weren't interested in doing an album. So when we'd done the two EPs, we knew that was kind of it. Um, and then an Irish label, Liquid Records, they approached us about doing an album, and we said, yeah. The budget was very small, so I think we 11 days to complete the album, recording and mixing. And we did it in a local studio. I remember it being pretty intense, 11 days. I think we had a couple of arguments during the 11 days that nearly saw us split up, but fortunately we managed to get through. And I think it was just because it was so intense and the pressure was on. You had 11 days to do the 10 songs, and I think there was a couple of the songs we hadn't fully finished going in, what bits of lyrics we hadn't done. So it was just a bit of a pressure situation, but we got it done, and I remember being very happy with it. We'd started listening to things like Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys and
Okay.
loved, you know, how that album, the sound of that record. Now, I'm not saying Submarine is anyway, directly influenced by Pet Sounds, but it did open our minds to using other instruments. Before that, it was kind of guitars all the way, but we could start, like on Submarine, we brought a kazoo in. We had some children's toys to make some kind of background noises, and those little influences, they seep in. It's a bit like the traditional music that I mentioned earlier on. The Beach Boys, no one would claim Submarine sounded anything like the Beach Boys, but because we were listening to it and loved it at the time, it did suggest was, it doesn't have to be just all guitar. So it was an important part of our music development. It was very much an album that wore its influences on its sleeve, though. And I
Yes.
remember one great review afterwards that said, "Buy Submarine and get Evil and Sister free," which I thought was good because
Yeah.
the Sonic Youth influence was pretty strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it came out, got some good reviews. The label weren't great, to be honest. They were an offshoot of a record label called Solid Records that were more mainstream. So they'd had a couple of bands, the Saw Doctors and the Stunning, that had
Okay.
big singles in Ireland that done really well on the radio. Got lots of radio play and had done well for them. And they wanted to set up this more alternative, uh, s- you
Mhm.
know, an alternative side, and to call that Liquid. And I think the Blue Angels may have signed to that as well. Shane's band, I think.
Yeah.
I could be wrong on that, but Toasted Heretic definitely did.
Okay.
They released something on it. I don't know if you know them. They were a good band from Galway, but I just don't think the label really knew what to do with us. Like they couldn't get us on the radio the way they could the Saw Doctors or the Stunning. So it kind of died a death straight after that. So we were back pretty much. It felt like things had stagnated. We'd played lots of gigs around Dublin and built up a bit of a following, but it felt
Yeah.
like it had plateaued a little bit, and then
Well,
the
it,
the
it
the
helped
label
you.
made a sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish
No, I
that.
was just going to say the label made it clear, look, we're not going to do another album with you. So we were back effectively labelless and no money and questioning, where do we go from here?
Yeah. Well, it did help you get your foot in the door. And,
That's it. Yeah.
you know, and speaking of live shows, big draw for the band. Now, is it true that Fearghal would cut himself on stage?
It's true that it happened once,
Okay.
but it's one of those things. I think a bottle shattered or glass broke on the stage, and he did something at one gig. But of course, these things these things grow legs, and suddenly it's like go along and see the band where the singer cuts himself, and
Right, right.
it wasn't a part of the show. It was just something that he
Yeah.
did once, but people obviously were there
It,
and passed the word around.
yeah.
So yeah,
It turns into an urban myth.
that's it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right, right. Want to go see a band to see, blood.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
one thing you could be sure when you went to our early gigs is you wouldn't know what might happen on the stage, and that was part of the attraction
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
people who came along. Like it could be like there was an edge to the gigs, and people would be a little bit uneasy standing in the audience because Fergal sometimes would go out into the audience, and you wouldn't know whether he was going to fix you with the stare, and it was just they were unpredictable, and but they were exciting as well, I think, for the audience because it was just a different thing. It wasn't us four guys come out, do the songs, everyone claps politely and goes home. It's four guys come out, do the songs, and potentially menace someone or more than one person in the audience for the time throughout the show. So yeah, it was a bit different.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure that was a big draw. That didn't know what to really expect, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, the album, the first one, did help get the band to deal with Columbia.
it did, but I think the deal with Columbia came more from a demo tape that we had done. So I suppose after Submarine, we retreated to this tiny rehearsal room in inner city Dublin. Someone had told us about this room because we'd been in rehearsal studios and it was quite costly to rehearse, if you wanted to rehearse 3 or 4 times a week. So someone told us about this room that had come available, no windows, absolutely tiny, like you just barely get the four of us in it. But we'd get it for next to nothing, and we could leave the gear set up all
Oh,
the time, which was a big help. You can come in when you like and rehearse. So we went, I suppose, for over a period of about 6 to 9 months, we wrote the bulk of Heartworm in there. And one of the things a friend of ours had said about how, and he loved the band. He was a huge fan of the band. But one thing he challenged us on after Submarine, and he was right at the time, we were quite indignant. He said to us, it's good and all, but what are you actually singing about? What is a safari? What's safari or submarine? What is that about? Like, there's nothing in those words. What does it mean?
yeah.
And we were kind of a bit taken aback because here's a friend of yours challenging you. But when we thought about it, there was a part of us that thought, he's right. We've nothing really to say as a band. And that's not in a political sense. It was what are we writing about? And I think that's why Heartworm became the album that it did, because I think we'd all lived a little bit more over the intervening years. So, we'd been together as a band at that stage, maybe 5, 6 years. And we retreated to this rehearsal room and just started writing music and words that I suppose came from somewhere a little bit different than Submarine. And
Yeah.
when we demoed some of those songs, one of the songs we demoed was We Don't Need Nobody Else. Unbeknownst to us, the engineer passed the tape on to the Sony Columbia rep in Dublin, and he loved that tape. He loved it and came back to us. So when he came back to us, we were like, "How did you even get to hear that?" And
Right.
it's another example of Dublin being such a small music scene. He got it because he knew Chris, the engineer, and Chris passed on the tape, and that's where that came from, more so than Submarine, I think.
Okay, okay. Well, I have a couple of Whipping Boys CDs. First, 95's Heartworm. Great album, great album. Uh, and the album garnered great reviews, praised by critics as well.
Yeah,
Um, and the tracks, like you were, I think, referring to, they're more introspective, and shine a light on the sometimes dark side of the human condition, you know, soul bearing, you know,
yeah.
and kind of confessionals, you know, in a way. So, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. I think that may have been a big attraction uh, to that. Were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, I think, yeah, that's a good summary of what the songs were like, which made it more puzzling for us as to why Sony or a major label would be interested.
Yeah.
Because,
Okay. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
uh, we were when they came back and they really started to pursue us. Like they gave us money to go in and record another demo tape. Um, so by the time we came to record Heartworm, we'd pretty much demoed every song that was on the record. And the fact that it was, as you say, dark and more introspective sounding, you know, we just found it hard to understand how a major label were interested in us.
Yeah.
But
That
they were.
that would be puzzling to me too, because they were
Yeah,
usually surface level. Yeah.
yeah,
A label that big. Yeah, exactly.
that's it.
Not too deep. Well,
Yeah.
I first heard Twinkle on local radio, and I had to go get the album. Um, when we were young, maybe my favorite on the album.
Mm.
Uh, my only complaint is it's too short.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I wish you could, it has you wanting more, you know.
yeah.
But I love the line. I think somebody growing up during that, time period, Starsky and Hutch gave good TV, and Starsky looked like me. Yeah, I thought, yeah.
Yeah.
I used to watch it. I used to watch it.
And
So
you know the origins of that song. I don't know if you know the other version of it that's on the reissue. It's actually we were actually asked to play at a Phil Lynott memorial gig. They did used to have one every year in Dublin, a
yeah.
vibe for Phil, what was called, and it was like a tribute to him. And lots of bands would play a couple of songs. So they asked us to play at one, and we didn't really want to do a cover version of a Phil Lynott song, but Fearghal had a book of lyrics, Phil Lynott lyrics, and one of those lyrics is called "Shades of a Blue Orphanage."
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and the lyrics in that are brilliant. They're kind of themed similarly to when we were young. So what we did was we wrote our own music for Shades of a Blue Orphanage, and that music became when we were young. This the music for when we were young. But a lot of people like the version Shades of a Blue Orphanage version better than the actual one, our version of it. Like if you listen to it, it's on the reissue. Fergal really delivers it so well, and it works so well with the music. So yeah, that's how that song came about. It was originally written for a one-off gig, and we liked the music so much we said let's write our own lyrics to this. So that's how that came about.
Is that how that came out? I'll have to listen to the reissue. I'll have to listen.
Yeah, I think it's on Spotify or Sony must have put it up, but it's on there on the second disc, and it's called When We Were Young Philo version. I think you'll be interested because the theme of the lyrics is similar to the theme in our own song, but it's just a different. It's a spoken word thing as well. So
Right, right. And the other line I like, and nobody has a past that catches up on you.
yeah,
When you're young, exactly. As you grow older, then there's lots of those skeletons that
yeah,
come back.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Right, right.
And nowadays with social media, people a lot of the stuff you might say something publicly online or on social media, and by God, it does come back to haunt people. Like there's people who've been cancelled and had careers destroyed on the basis of a
Yeah,
single tweet.
yes, yes.
Crazy.
That cancel culture is rampant and it's outrageous. But
Yeah,
well, you mentioned spoken word, and you also referred to "We Don't Need Nobody Else" earlier. But I like that. That's very effective. I think it's like when it's a spoken word song, the listener can tell it's coming from the heart. You know,
yeah, yeah.
there's no emotive energy there. No putting. Yeah, emotiveness, I guess, is a word for it. It's just it's there. It's what it is.
Mm.
A personal story.
And
So
Fergal had a really kind of rich voice for
yes,
delivering that spoken word. So I think he has a kind of a storyteller's voice,
yeah,
and that's what drags you in to those narratives. And another song on the album, "A Natural," which was the hidden track on the CD. Um, he has that's going on. That's one that people often cite as the one that really stunned them to hear those lyrics, because it's very stark when, as you say, when it's spoken word. It's so stark and almost dispassionate listening to it. And yet the
Yes.
words are saying things that are deeply personal and
Yeah,
deeply emotive, you know.
that's right. Well, you mentioned, did you say Unnatural, the hidden
And
track?
no, A Natural.
A Natural. Is that
Yeah.
the second part of Morning Rise?
It comes on about 30 seconds after Morning Rise.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a different track though, yeah.
Yes, yes, okay. I always heard it as, the same track, but just
Okay, yeah,
even though they're totally different. Okay, so it's the hidden
yeah,
track. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Yes, that was well, I'll go ahead and jump ahead to that. That's another one that Morning Rise and A Natural are I love both of those. And then backed by the Dublin Symphony, you know.
Yeah. Miles in particular was really has loved strings and had a bit of a flair for he could compose string bits pieces on keyboard. So he would have done the original strings for Morning Rise, and then Warren Livesey came in and scored and wrote the music down and added some flourishes and some little changes to the string arrangement. But a lot of that was done by Miles. That was something he was really interested in.
Yes, I think that was a nice addition to a couple of tracks on there. Personality, another
Yeah,
another one from the heart. Uh,
yeah, and that's a track that's kind of name checks a lot of the people and characters and places that we would have encountered growing up in Dublin. So there's places like J.J. Smith's, which is this famous old pub very close to where we recorded the first two EPs. He used to have Monday nights jazz musicians playing. But there'd be all kinds of punks and locals hanging out in the downstairs bar. So yeah, that song is kind of just plucks characters from the past and puts them center stage. And
yeah,
there's a line in that song about the senator. Um, a woman was put on this earth to be admired and adored, not abused. Or so the senator said one night in JJ Smith's. And that's exactly what happened. We were in JJ Smith's on a break from recording the first EP. And this old guy who had been sitting at the bar came over and sat beside us and got talking to us. And we said to him, we're in recording in there. We'd love to put your voice on the recording. If you were given the opportunity to say one thing, anything at all, what would you say? And that's what he said.
and
He
that's
sat
exactly.
there, he thought for a second, and he said, women were put on this earth to be admired and adored, not abused. That was it.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
thought we remembered it from that was like 7 years before, and Fearghal used that line and put it into the song so it didn't die out. It was just something that was quite profound and quite unexpected to hear him say at that point in time, you know?
yes, yes. Love to hear origins of where the lyrics come from too, like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. I'm glad you that kind of lived on through the song, his words.
that's
Wow,
it.
very nice. And then one more track, Blinded. It's got a great chorus on that track. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of very much a pop song for us. It's a really poppy melody. There's a song someone pointed out. There's a Smashing Pumpkins song that came out after Blinded. Sounds really like that. I think it's a song called Perfect. I could
Oh,
be
okay.
wrong.
Could be, could be.
And it has that same riff. We actually supported Smashing Pumpkins in Dublin um around the time or just before Heartworm. So some people have are trying to suggest that they might have swiped it on us, but I don't think they will. I can't believe they would do that. So, but yeah, that was a kind of a pop song. We were I think it's a little, we were borrowing kind of from a bands like New Order. I think it has a bit of a feel of Love Vigilantes, that New
Oh,
Order song.
yeah,
I think has a feel of that off it, and it's just got a good pop melody. I think
yeah. I can
it was
hear that.
always a popular live song as well.
Yeah, yeah. I had a friend that was a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan, and he had everything by the band. Wow,
Yeah,
well, well. So the band had recorded a third album, but it wasn't released at the time as Columbia had dropped the band. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, why did they drop the band? I mean, you would think with the the success of Heartworm, there would be more, room for more recordings.
Yeah, I suppose it was it was critically a success in some respects. Like it got great reviews, but commercially,
Not
it
commercial.
wasn't. It wasn't. It just didn't do enough. When you're on a major label, you have to go into it with your eyes wide open and know that there will be a pressure to you to sell records. And if that doesn't happen, the label are more than likely going to drop you. So we weren't that surprised when it happened. I think the label did get behind the record as much as they could. Sorry, the the MD of the company of Columbia loved the band, like really loved the band. But when it didn't sell in the quantities expected, uh, they just made it very clear. We had a 2 album firm deal with them, so they had to pay us off not to do the second album, and we used that to help fund the third record. But by the time the third record came out, we'd split up. Things had just started to fracture within the band, and the third album wasn't really. It was recorded at. It wasn't a good time to be in the band. There was relationships had broken down, so I think you can hear it in that third album. That it was the sound of a band I think starting to fall apart. So yeah, it came out in 2000 I think, but we'd split up
Yeah, you'd already
nearly a
split up.
couple of years before. So yeah, it
Yeah,
was a waste. It was kind of almost a waste of time because it got very little coverage, and it is a good record. I still think there's some great songs on it, but just
yeah.
we were
I've
gone at that stage.
Right. Yeah, the momentum had gone too. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the other album I have on CD. You released it on your own label, Low Rent.
that's right. Yeah,
And my top pick is So Much for Love. Yeah.
yeah. I kind of think that works as both a love song, but also it was the sound of us falling apart as well. That's the way I interpret the lyrics. I don't know if that's was behind Fearghal in the way whether that was what he was thinking when he wrote them, but that's the way I hear it. It's the sound of a band falling out of love with each other. So
Yeah. Yeah. It can be taken that way. I can hear that
mm.
in the lyrics. Yeah. Also like Pat the Almighty. It's another track I like off of that one.
Yeah, Pat the Almighty. There's always been speculation as to who the Pat in the
Who
song
the
is,
Pat
and
is.
it is a Dublin musician from around that time. Um, that I suppose Fergal was taking aim at because he thought he had notions about himself, this guy. So yeah, he's probably the stereotypical musician who thinks they're bigger than they are. It's just that's the theme of that as well. Just you meet a lot of them along the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and then one last track of that I like, Mutton is one that I like.
Yeah, yeah, that was kind of we were going through a bit of a wedding present. I don't know if you know the album Sea Monsters by the Wedding Presents.
No,
They're
I'm not familiar with
they're
that.
yeah, they're an English band. They had been they'd
Yeah,
released a couple of really popular
yeah,
indie English albums, and
right,
then they went and changed their sound dramatically. Steve
right.
Albini produced
Yeah,
this album, and he literally made it sonically
mhm.
a different band. But we were kind of influenced by that album at the time, so there's a bit of that you can hear in Mutton. Mutton is probably a little bit more guitar pop than anything on Sea Monsters because Sea Monsters is a challenging listen. It's pretty extreme guitar sound and vocals are buried in the mix, but that's where that kind of was inspired by.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I have their like greatest hits, but I don't have any individual albums.
Okay.
Wedding Present. Yeah, another band that had the short songs. Really.
Yeah, yeah. They were really their earlier albums were all really short, really frenetic,
Yeah,
fast
yeah.
songs. But as they progressed on, they changed their sound a little bit.
I kind of fleshed them out. Yeah, yeah. Well, again, in around 2005, the band would reform and played several dates in Ireland, but then would disband the following year.
So
So,
that band that would have been Fearghal and Colm. We Miles and myself weren't involved in that.
okay.
Uh, they I suppose it did cause a bit of it caused a bit of upset at the time. Um, obviously we weren't happy about it, but look, we've patched up our differences on that, and I can understand why the reasons why they did it now, and it's kind of water under the bridge. But yeah, that wasn't Myles and us. It wasn't the original lineup of the band.
Okay. What is Fearghal up to these days?
Fergal's living in the Midlands. He kind of lives a fairly quiet life down there. He's working. I think he's still working as a
Oh,
chef, or yeah, something like that. I've seen him recently. We went to the John Cale gig in Dublin earlier in the year, and the four of us met up, and it was nice to see the guys again. It'd been a while since we'd been all together in the same room, so it was nice to see him. But yeah, well, he does a little bit of music, I think, every now and again, but not as much as he would have done back then.
right. Well, talk about what you did after Whipping Boy.
Yeah, so I suppose one of the part of the fallout of the band splitting up was I kind of saw Whipping Boy as a failure. It was something that had not worked out, and I just didn't want to be involved in music. Like I always said at the time, there was no way I'd join another band. I just walked away from it, and I just threw myself into. I just got back into working, a 9 to 5 job. Got involved in some other things, coaching at kids playing football. Um, got into running in a big way for a while. But I also did a bit of writing, music writing, for an entertainment website over here. So it was a particularly big site at the time, entertainment.ie, mostly mainstream stuff, but I was able to squeeze in reviews of like some of my favorite alternative bands. So I did that for a while. Started writing a blog relatively recently on the history of Whipping Boy, which I'm doing on Substack. So it's just broken into chapters, going through a lot of what we've spoken about today, but in a bit more detail. But yeah, I didn't pick up a guitar for a long, long time. I mean, it sat in the corner, and it was something that had once been like when I started playing the guitar, it was this magic thing that every time I picked it up, there was the potential that you'd create or make
Yeah.
something amazing. And
Yes.
now there was a period after Whipping Boy when I picked her up, and it was this dead, lifeless piece of wood. Anything I did on it just sounded like what is that? So I just stopped playing completely for years, and I never really wanted to play. I never got the hunger. People used to say to me, "This is an awful. Such a shame that you're not playing guitar," or they'd say, "Do you not miss it?" And I could honestly say at the time I didn't.
Okay.
Um, I didn't. So it was very recently. I think it was around this time last year that I just started feel the urge to, pick up the guitar again and just start playing around, and not just fiddling around with ideas. And I got a couple of good ideas, and I was thinking, I'd love to be able to just record these in some way and just see how they go. So I reached out to Dave. I'd heard Dave on a podcast with Shane, and they were talking about a track or a long. They'd done this album, which is fairly ambient piece. He probably spoke to you about it at the
Yeah.
time. But I heard him on the podcast, and he was talking about this little device that he records all his ideas on. It's a Boss Micro BR80 so I contacted him. We'd kept in touch, and I said, "Dave, what was that device that thing you?" And he said, "Why are you back playing?" And I said, "Well, I'm just doing a little bit." And he said, told me what it was, and I went out and bought one. Got one at Christmas, and just started recording ideas I had. And then around June of this year, he sent me a song and said, "Would you put some guitars on this?" And that's how the Sentimental Tourists started out. It's literally as recent as June. Like before June, there wasn't an inkling that we were going to do anything. That's how it just came from that.
Yeah, is that right? Wow, that
Yeah,
fast. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And these devices are just. I just think it's such an amazing thing that I can record a couple of guitar tracks with a drum pattern, send them to Dave by email, and he can then put his vocals on, and we can just back and forth between us, and eventually get something that's good enough to put out there. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's how that come about. From
Right.
there, I sent him I had the chords for Happy Beetle, which is on our EP, and
Yeah.
I sent him that with a bit of guitars on it. He loved it, and he put lyrics on. He had the lyrics and thing back to me within 3 or 4 days, and I just loved the melody he put on it. So it snowballed from there. After we had 4 tracks, we said, why don't we just on put this out on Bandcamp and see what happens. So
Well,
um
who came up with the name Sentimental Tourist?
yeah, I think I suggested that name. We were going through a host of names, and I read something, a kind of a definition of what a sentimental tourist is, and I just liked it, and I sent it to Dave, and he loved that. Like we had a couple of horrible names we tried, but we were tossing around before. I'm not even going to mention them, but yeah, and I sent it to him. He thought that was perfect. So we put the EP out, did it all ourselves. Um, we did get Jimmy Eady to do master the tracks for us, because Jimmy's like a bit of a sonic wizard. So he mastered them, and it did make them sound much better, because these devices are like, I'd show you if I had it here, but it literally fits in the palm of my hand. It's a tiny little device. So the idea of putting something out on a release that had been recorded on that
Right.
it's pretty lo-fi, but I think Jimmy made it sound less lo-fi. He gave it something just by mastering it properly. And yeah, and we put it out, and it got a really good response in Ireland. We were kind of taken aback and surprised. Um, Good reviews, and
I love
like
I like the
yeah,
cover art. I like the cover art on both of the EPs too, that
they're photographs that I had taken years before, and I always took photos with the idea of what would this look like as an album cover. Even when I wasn't playing music,
yeah,
I'd take
right,
photographs
right,
and then put effects on them using an app, Snapseed, to make them look like album covers. Because I
yeah.
love cover art. Like I love the cover art of bands like the Cocktail Twins,
Yeah,
Sigur Rós,
okay, yeah,
all the 4AD cover art. I'm like a
yeah.
massive fan of, and that factory bands as well. Really love all that. So yeah. Um, so that's the cover art. Eventually, I got to use it as an actual album cover, which is strange, because some of those photos I think were probably 10 years old, 8 years old, maybe. So
Yeah, yeah. I think they work definitely along with the music. They kind of complement, and both ways. The music complements the artwork and the photography, and vice versa. But
yeah,
yeah, yeah. You mentioned Happy Beetle. I think that does kind of recall Little Whipping Boy.
yeah, it's probably closer to Whipping, but I think some of the stuff on the new EP is like a really perfect hybrid of Whipping Boy and Into Paradise. I just think the songs on the new EP, particularly Under the Waves, sounds like a song that if you were to take half of Whipping Boy and put them with half of Into Paradise, they'd come up with that, which I suppose it's not surprising, because we both, you know, I carry the influences of the stuff I did with Whipping Boy in terms of the car, and obviously Dave would be similar
Yeah,
with this. And yeah, even some of that, like Dave, he kind of wrote the lyrics on all of the songs, and on the first EP, um, it's some like Happy Beat was the chord structure I sent him, but the other 3 tracks are effectively songs he had written on the acoustic guitar and sent to me then.
okay.
And he was just so encouraging. He was, really kind of everything I sent him, he was telling me how great it was. And when I listened to it back, I'm thinking, yeah, that's a bit tentative sounding. I think even the new EP sound a bit more like a more confident playing the guitar, because I was afraid to mess up his songs basically when he sent them to me. That's why I didn't want to do anything too
Right.
dramatic to them, because
Right. You don't want
uh,
to change it too much. Yeah.
no, like that song Witch's Lane, I love that with just his
Yeah.
voice and his acoustic guitar. So
Yeah.
I put a really low key guitar on that. I didn't want to mess it up at all. But I think it worked, and
Yeah.
I think I think we work really well together. I think we just complement each other.
I
We
think you
just,
do too. It comes
yeah,
through in the music, from the first one and when the moment comes, another one. Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And it's just been easy. There's been no drama. It's been we just
yeah,
we seem to both like the same type of things, and
yeah.
we've continued
You,
writing like literally from
right.
that first song he sent. We've been writing
Yeah.
together, so we've stockpiled a few songs now.
Well, it seems like you're both, talking to Dave too, you're both kind of a laid back, easygoing types.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I don't think either of us are have any kind of notions or are prima donnas in any way.
Yeah,
We just
yeah,
get on with it and do the stuff and just encourage each other. I think Dave's an amazing songwriter. I'd love the solo albums that he
yeah,
had done
yeah,
and the stuff he did with Shane, really like that as well. So I
yeah.
feel great. I feel really honored to be getting to work with him, to
I
be
do
honest.
too. I do too.
Yeah,
Well, I want to mention again another track from the first one, "Don't Make Me Wait."
yeah,
Beautiful. That's a beautiful song
yeah.
to
And
my.
that's Dave's song. Like that, he sent me that with just acoustic, and
Yeah,
so I wanted to keep the guitars understated. I didn't want to, I wanted his vocal melody, and that's the kind of the highlight of that song for me, the melody and the words. So
yeah. And the second EP released just last month, "Living in Smoke Dreams." Uh,
yeah,
I enjoy "With the Radio On."
yeah,
Great, great melody and guitar work on that one. Yeah,
yeah. I think this, as I said to you, I think this EP, I've started to come out of my shell a bit more and be a bit more confident in the guitar playing. And Dave actually plays a bit of guitar on that song, so
yeah,
he plays there's this very crunchy rhythm guitar,
yes,
and I
yes.
think he puts his acoustic guitar through some kind of distorted effect and it's come up with this. I couldn't replicate it. He said to me, "What do you think of it?" And I said, "Yeah, I think it sounds great." He said, "Well, you probably play it better," but I couldn't replicate that sound. I said, "No, I love that sound. Let's leave that on because."
Yeah, it works.
So
I
yeah,
think I think it does work. And then I'll really love the mood created in "Living in Smoke Dreams." The title.
yeah.
Yeah,
I thought when we did that one first, I thought that was the best song we had done together
yeah,
since we started. And I think Dave agreed. I think his lyrics and that are probably the best of the 7 songs we've put out. I just think they evoke a real certain atmosphere and a certain feeling.
yeah,
Um, and we toyed with the idea of putting drums on it, but decided not. We just thought it worked better keeping
yeah,
it acoustic and the electric guitars. So yeah, I remember when I sent my bit to Dave, he thought he was really excited about it. He thought it was, yeah, this is definitely the best thing we've done. We've got to work on this a bit more. So yeah, that turned out really well. And Under the Waves, which is the fourth track, as I said, I think that's probably the most perfect hybrid of the two bands. But when we did that first, I had a completely different guitar riff on it, and it reminded me of some cheesy 70s song. And I said it to Dave,
yeah,
and Dave was probably too polite to say to me, "Yeah, that's not that great."
yeah,
And he would have probably went for it, but I played it for my wife as well, and she said, "Yeah, I'm not sure about that." So I changed it completely, a completely different riff. And now I think it feels a bit more like a kind of a 80s early 80s Blondie, the Cars kind of feel to
yeah,
it. I
yeah,
don't know. It just has that feel. And some people have said Guided by Voices. It's a bit like that as well. So,
yeah, yeah. I can hear
but
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
really,
yeah.
I think so we've put out 2 EPs since June. Um, it's pretty, it's good going. I wish we'd been this prolific when we were
I was going to
back in
say
the day.
prolific. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, well, with the release of the two EPs like back to back like that, it begs the question: is there an album in the works, or are you just going to keep doing the EPs?
No, I think we'd like to do an album. I mean, I've discussed this with Dave. I do think when you put something out on Bandcamp, it limits your audience. There's a lot of people wouldn't listen or wouldn't, you know, use or like consume music from through Bandcamp it's either Spotify. People have this expectation now that music should be free or should be always available, and I think Bandcamp is a great community of. It's a great way of getting your music out there and getting some rewarded in some way for what you put out there. But I do think it limits your audience. I'd like to do I would like to do an album, and I'd like to put it out on vinyl. Just the nostalgic part of me, and we've discussed this. Like I don't know, Dave probably thinks, I don't know if he thinks, you know, it's not something that necessarily would appeal to him. But for me, the nostalgic thing of putting out on vinyl,
Yeah.
it's a strong pull for me. And I think a lot of people listen to music now again on vinyl. So
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
like to do it, but it's quite expensive to press vinyl, and you need to be sure that you have some kind of an audience to buy the album, or you end up like losing a bunch of money. So we'll see. But I do think I do think we'll put an album out in some shape or form.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, like you said, with the resurgence of interest in vinyl, yeah, that would be something to look at. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. All right. Well, Paul, anything in closing that we may have omitted or you'd like to mention or uh, talk
No, I
about?
think we've covered everything. We do have potentially putting out a Christmas song.
Oh,
Um,
all right.
we Dave had this song on his hard drive that he sent me, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Now it was just acoustic and voice, but we've built it into something a bit more epic now.
Okay.
So yeah, we'd like to put that out. And I just want to give a shout out for Jimmy Eady for the work he's done with the two EPs. You know, Jimmy was guitarist with Into Paradise, and
Yes.
I mentioned earlier on he's a sonic wizard. But the work he did, particularly on the second EP, he didn't just master it; he actually mixed it, co-produced it, and mastered it. And it sounds like, I think sonically it's a big step up from the first EP, and that's a lot of that's down to Jimmy. So I'd like to shout out. I didn't know, like Jimmy apparently, and this was something I didn't know about him. I knew him as the guitarist with Into Paradise, but he's a really well respected sound designer. He's done sound design for theater works, and he's got, so he's really well qualified around sonic engineering, sound engineering, and yeah, so he's made a massive difference to our little lo-fi songs that we've recorded on those 8 tracks. So yeah, shout out to him.
Yeah. Yeah. Helps bring them to life. Yes.
That's it.
All right. Well, that sounds really good, Paul. Something to look forward to, fans out there watching, viewing this. Keep abreast and go ahead and plug the website.
The website, it's sentimentaltourists.bandcamp.com. So our first two EPs are available from that. So yes, sign up, follow there, and we put out little regular kind of bulletins on what's going on and what's coming up there as well. So yeah, that's it. That's where you get the latest news on the band.
There you go. All right. Well, I want to thank you again, Paul, for your time and for going back in that time machine with me. And
Thanks, Greg. It's been a pleasure.
I love to hear the journey, the musical journey.
Yeah.
So it's what it's all about. All right. Well, stay in touch and keep me posted too. I'll keep, going back and checking on the website too. But if you have anything that you'd like to send me or anything at
Yeah,
all,
definitely. We'll keep you in the loop. I'll send you anything that
yes,
we've done.
that sounds really good. All the best to you. And you have a this is what, Sunday. Oh, your weekend's almost over. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I didn't mean to end on a downer note.
Yeah.
Right?
It's Monday tomorrow, so yeah,
It's,
we're
it's back
back
to
to the
Monday.
grindstone.
Yes, there we go. All right. Well, all the best to you, okay, Paul?
Thanks,
And
Greg. Thanks for having me.
you're very welcome.